Well, there are other things going on besides the coronavirus outbreak. And Anti-Racism Week began on Saturday, and it runs until Human Rights Day, which is also the United Nations International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. And locally, the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, together with other civil society groups and individuals in the anti-racism network, will come up with tools, awareness campaigns, and of course, multiple approaches to try and tackle systemic racism in the country. Comedian Chester Missing will be engaging with learners at schools around Johannesburg and will also run a show titled How to End Racism. Wow, can't wait to hear how that's supposed to happen. Neeshan Balton, of course, is the executive director at the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, and comedian Conrad, Koch, also known as Chester Missing. They're here to discuss this further.
Hey.
I think that's quite right. Are you also known as Chester?
No,
Missing,
that's totally the wrong. Gwede Mantashe calls me Chester. It's weird. He literally, hey, Chester. No, that's not. I'm not Chester. He's here. Okay. Must I get him out?
No,
let's get him out in a moment.
Just keep him in the suitcase just for a while, because before we get into this conversation, let's take a quick look. We took our cameras to the streets, and we asked ordinary South Africans what their thoughts were about the existence of racism in modern society. And this is what they had to say.
Racism is still existing, because if I can make an example from the work that I've been doing recently, we still got whites that are, as I can say, I'm a code-14 driver, so we got whites on work whereby we're doing the very same job. So I can say these people, they earn a lot of salary than us, but we're actually doing the very same job.
I feel like government schools and public schools, like the schools in the locations, are getting less resources than the schools in the suburbs and all that. Yeah.
So you're saying racism?
Yeah, I think it still does.
Yeah, racism does still exist, because even there at my campus, I can see sometimes some other white people, they be hanging out with only white people. They don't get to associate a lot with black people. Others, they say, okay, they may know each other just because they're classmates, but then they don't share like those typical things. They don't get real into that one. There's never a trust. There can be love, but trust will never be there. So that's what I'm saying. Racism hasn't ended yet.
Also, some of the views from the people on the streets of Johannesburg. Neeshan, let me start with you. Of course, the Anti-Racism Week campaign activities kicking off yesterday, but what are some of the activities that are planned?
Unfortunately, like many of the events planned in the country, we've also had to review in the last sort of 24 hours. So a lot of the seminars, workshops, discussions, public demonstrations around racism, particularly on 21st of March, we had to put them all on hold. And so what we had planned to do in the course of the week was really to have raised a series of talking points in the public domain. One particularly that you've seen in those clips is the persistence of racism, the forces that drive it, the kinds of the racism and its links to social media in particular. Because as one of our speakers, Prof. Asheli Mbembe, said last week, racism mutates over time. It takes on new forms, it finds new avenues, and in its latest variety is really the racism in social media that is its main driving force today. And these were the themes that we were going to unpack. Secondly, we were going to look at the impact of the coronavirus, particularly on the Chinese community in South Africa, who, from reports, have really started to feel the level of discrimination, the phobia that goes with it, and outright ostracization in many public institutions. And lastly, we were going to look at the state's national action plan. Government now has a national action plan to combat racism, and we were going to start unpacking that in a much more meaningful and practical way. And to conclude on the 21st of March, we would have had a picket or a demonstration at the Indian High Commission to draw the global links to racism today, because its resurgence across the world in places like India and Israel and the US and across much of Northern Europe today has many of the same characteristics that we have seen in South Africa of past and perhaps which still exists in different ways in this country. So it was a series of events, activities, workshops, training, but all of that, unfortunately, we have now had to put on hold, particularly the school visits that Chester was going to do for this entire week. Many of the schools, I think, have rightfully so said, look, can we do this at a later point in the year? And Anti-Racism Week is something we can basically put back onto the agenda at any given time. But the day-to-day work of educating around racism, the foundation and other institutions will start driving that through social media and digital platforms from today and tomorrow.
Conrad.
Hey.
You know, so as Neeshan says, the school activities will probably have to wait a while. But can you please release the puppet? I'm becoming claustrophobic just watching, you know, the suitcase.
He's in Corona quarantine.
Is that his quarantine area?
Okay, you're ready. You were here with Sakina. Oh my, she's still at the SABC. Don't say some people still work here. Are you clean? Yeah, I've got a glove for you. Okay, here we go. Oh. You ready? Oh,
well,
yes.
Chester clean.
Yeah. And they're out of latex, Sakina. Hey, hi there. Hi there. Hi. Oh, Neeshan, hi. Good to be here. Oh, sure that. Hi. Oh, yesterday. Hi there. Hi.
Hello.
There. My glasses. God, it's nice that you're still here, Sakina.
No. You know, some of us are diehards, like yourself. How's the quarantine?
It's going well. I'm made out of latex, so I can't get corona. What's it? There's a corona. What's it? Anstel. Corona. Corona, that's their name they went with. Okay,
yeah,
all right.
That's Corona.
Said the
COVID-19.
World Health Organization, that's another confusing name. Who says it's a pandemic? I don't know. No, who did? No, the who? Yeah, who? I don't know.
The World Health Organization.
Yeah, no wonder Donald Trump doesn't know what's going on.
So do tell. You were supposed to go to school, so now you can't go.
You can't go. I can go because I can't get the illness, can I? Oh! Even Tom Hanks got it, hey?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
he did.
I mean, he can survive anything. Yes, he had a whole movie where he was stuck in an airport. Yeah. Awkwardly, it was called Terminal. Okay, right.
So just
we can't go to the schools, but Chester's got this awesome speech on called How To, and then I have never actually got to the speech, Neeshan, because I can't talk about racism unless I know whether this guy... Wait. Well, are you racist? You can't ask me that here. Do you see how he looked around like that? That's what we do, Neeshan, white people. If you ask us if we're racist, we look around like a meerkat checking for snakes. But I can't talk about racism unless I know if he's racist. So we've never actually got
have you had an answer from him at some point?
I think he's racist. Come on, dude. There's no way you could grow up in this country and not learn some level of racism. You know that weird, like, I'm not racist, but... No, look, man, most of my friends are of color. You know, I've got... that's what we do, eh? That's what we do. I've got a black friend. His name is... Jeremy. So that's what the talk is about. I mean, we did it wonderfully at the Apartheid Museum the other day, but Chester never actually gets to it because he spends the entire time talking about whether I'm racist, and that's mainly what he does. You are racist, you know you are.
Okay. So as for school children, what ages are we targeting here?
That sound doesn't... You're not making it sound good. No, it's good. It's mainly for high school students, so we're going to a variety of high schools because it's quite hectic topics. I talk about the history of colonialism, I talk about apartheid, I talk about the fact that the English stole the entire planet, then they call the land they stole the Commonwealth. That's like mugging someone and then going sharing is caring. Okay, hang on. We discussed the fact that apartheid's legacy isn't over. Do you know that the 187 of the top 200 schools in this country are still previously white? So the previously white, yes, 157% of the kids at those schools. So in other words, we still got the land and geography.
We know that.
I know that a lot of people don't, Sakina. That's the problem. A lot of people are unaware of how insane our history is. A lot of kids aren't even aware that, like, people of color couldn't go to beaches. I know, white people, when they're drowned, people go to the beach, and then they went to the beach to get drowned. So, getting people to understand it and engage with how apartheid's shaped our own privilege, I think gets one to be able to talk about whether we're racist. You know you're racist. And the problem is that by defining ourselves as not racist, especially as white South Africans, by ignoring our own racism, it's impossible for anyone to actually deal with their racism, because nobody thinks they're racist. Nobody is racist thinks they're racist.
But of course, Neeshan, that's the quickest way to get people's backs up, especially white South Africans, because the minute you start talking around racism, they go, oh, not again. We're not going down that road again. Why can't you just get over it and move on?
Yeah.
Well, I think partly it's the way we understand 1994.
Yeah.
For many, 1994 represents total liberation and freedom. Whereas, in fact, 1994 was a moment to start defining freedom and working towards full equality and freedom in this country. And I think you saw the kinds of statements from the de Klerk Foundation, which I think was hugely reflective of that kind of mentality. We don't share a common understanding of our past, which really makes sharing an understanding of our present much, much more complicated. And that's the huge work that still needs to be done.
And we're out of time, but just, addressing such a serious issue through humor. Conrad, both you and Chester, that can't be easy to actually drum that message home.
It is hard, and what we found is that by Chester focusing on my own racism, because he's racist, by focusing on my own mistakes where I have got it wrong and telling people about where I've got it wrong, it's just like, other white people, let's get on board with this. We are hurting our friends and our family of color and the people we know by our obliviousness, and we need to do better. We really need to. The conversation that needed to happen in 1994 did not happen, and as a result, obliviousness forces racism on people of color all the time, and it's not your fault. You weren't born, you didn't choose to be born white. But it's like Crocs. If you see a kid in Crocs, they didn't decide to wear their Crocs. The mother made them do something. It's like Tata on their feet, Sakina. It's not okay. That kid didn't decide to wear Crocs. We're only judging you if you're still wearing Crocs. That's how racism works.
You and I agree on Crocs. But I tell you what, gentlemen, what we'll do is we'll bring you back closer to a time when this has, gotten to a point where it can go ahead, because right now we're all on COVID-19 watch and no more than 100 people allowed together at any point. So I guess you staying in that suitcase.
I am in the suitcase.
Yeah, and Neeshan and Conrad, I'll speak to you guys at a later stage.
Lovely. Thank you.
Right, as you heard there, things put on hold. Neeshan Balton, and he's of course the executive director at the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, and Conrad Koch, joined by Chester Missing, reflecting on racism in this country as they embark on the Anti-Racism Week, which have hit a few wobbles, but we'll bring them back at a later stage when we know for certain where and when what's going to happen. Let's take a quick break.